ask about Trey McKenna. He obviously showed what he could mix in pretty well with veteran on both sides in the opener. What have you seen him, how have you seen him mesh with and maybe learn from guys on your squad like Namari and Roddy?
Well, I'll begin with his humility. I mean, for a five-star freshman to come into a program like Michigan and have a lot more questions than answers is probably a little bit rare. But that's who he is as a person. I think his ability to fit in has been great. You put him on the blue team in practice, the maize team in practice, whatever lineup combination, and he's trying to figure out the best way for him to function in that group. We're still trying to figure out, does he play better with these big guys? Do we need him to be in this group so it's more of a scoring punch? Do we need to have him in this group some as a floor spacer so they play better together? So we're still trying to answer all those questions, but when you have guys with his character and ability, usually those things kind of work themselves out.
Where's LJ? Do you expect him to play? And how do you assess your backup point guard position right now? Would you consider him your backup point guard?
Ideally we play more of a positionless basketball. When you look throughout the world, it doesn't really matter who initiates offense. Obviously, Elliott's going to have the ball in his hands because he's sharing it and getting it to wherever it needs to go at all times and quarterbacking things. But LJ can do that as well. Trey McKinney's really improved in that area. It's more important probably against presses and late in games when it does slow down and we have to get more organized. But yeah, LJ, to answer your question, the first part, LJ, the last 2 days of practice looks like he did before his injuries. And he had a couple back-to-back injuries, which is tough. So I'm excited to see LJ play. He looked, I guess, more in rhythm the last 2 days. His conditioning has gotten back to where it was pre-injury. And when these guys go out with an arm injury or shoulder injury, they're staying on the bike, and our strength coach Matt does a great job with those things, but there's nothing comparable to basketball shape. And so he looks like he's back in basketball shape and playing good ball. So, I don't know if he's our backup point guard, if he's our combo with Elliott and a combo with Roddy and Trey. But without a doubt, I think he can initiate offense or, go make plays for himself or his teammates.
Dusty, talking to Mike Boynton last week, he discussed Adai in defending smaller bigs. How do you feel like he's handled that through the first 3 games, and how can you work with him on that?
I think I was pretty clear early presenting what I thought our challenges with Wake would be. Adai is going to be, he's a really good player. He hasn't done that well enough yet for us to be at a championship level program. And so he has to improve his ability to contest threes, to sit down and guard. And we've got to do a better job of supporting him as well, because obviously there's matchups on both sides of the ball. And, on the other end, Wake is going to have to double team him most likely and whatnot. So that is an area of concern in November. But like most areas of concern, if you can get exposed this early, then you have more time and more intentionality to improve, and those guys have done that. Like I said, I think we're better in a lot of areas since last week. We're not where we need to be, but I do think we're inching in the right direction.
Would you expect that Yax is fully good to go tomorrow with no restrictions, and also where does Winters Grady in his recovery? Yes,
Yax should be close to 100%. Winters Grady is back practicing now. Winters loves ball so much that he was injured, and he kept re-injuring his foot in a minor way. And basically our medical staff just held him and said you're not going to be able to play well, move well, as long as you're going at 50, 60, 70% or whatever the case. So he sat out longer than he wanted to. I think it probably drove him crazy because he loves ball so much. Oakland would have been a great game for him to play because of their zone. And I think with Winters, if you can get him a clean look, there's probably as good chance of the ball going in as anyone on our team. But yeah, he's still trying to figure out where he fits in with the numbers. And obviously, when you're a freshman and you miss a couple weeks, it gets more difficult. But he's going to help this team.
Yeah, Dusty, so often this time of year, you'll hear coaches tend to say, like, the defense is ahead of the offense. Obviously, that did not look like the case with how the offense was clicking on last week. When you say that you had things to clean up, was it mostly on the defensive end, or what sort of things?
Both sides of the ball. We can't count on making 19 threes on a given night. And obviously our size and passing ability will make us tough to zone. But, yeah, we have a lot to clean up on defense. It begins with what our foundation is taking away layups and rhythm three-pointers. And right now teams are getting too many of both of those, and we're not turning you over nearly enough for us to be at our best. So we've challenged some guys in some different areas, and without a doubt that we are better now than we were 1 week ago. So Wake's going to present some challenges. They're guards. They have good speed. They've got good size at the guard. They've got guys that get to the basketball. Juke Harris is really impressed me. Him and Spillers, just their activity and how quickly they get to the ball. And those guys can score 20 points each on a given night without having things ran for them. And so, we're going to see some things we haven't seen yet out of Wake that are going to present some challenges.
With both teams having so many, new guys from last year, how much does last year's game matter, both as far as, your scouting and then and any motivation for the guys who lost that game last year?
Well, it matters because it puts you in a terrible mood once you rewatch it. But no, just to see where we were in November, and that game taught us a lot about ourselves. I think we discovered a few things after that game or during that game and throughout the study of the game. But yeah, as programs, we all have certain things that we can write down that when we play Team X, they're going to be really good at this year in, year out. They're going to do this year in, year out. And Wake is one of those teams. Some of the things that they hurt us with last year, they're doing at a high level again this year.
James? Dusty, I guess just with Morez, just how have you seen his offensive game develop since he's been here? And I guess just how much more is he capable of showing in offense?
It's developed at a pretty rapid pace. I mean, it's, from your freshman to sophomore year of college is typically when you make your biggest jump, and then sophomore to junior year you typically make a jump. But he's in the gym, he's working on his game. I hate that he missed 6 weeks because he was improving rapidly. But it's never going. His game is always going to be about winning the margins. He's a junkyard dog. It's the loose basketballs. It's the intensity and physicality that he brings to the game, and then him being able to develop as a passer, as a driver, as a catch and shoot guy, are all things he works on daily. I do think this week, speaking of practice, I feel like he's probably improved the most in the last week. Does that translate to immediate success in the games and the things he's working on? No, but he's definitely adding more and more where he's becoming a weapon. And there's going to be nights whenever we get it to him and they fan out on our 3-point shooters, and he's got to go create an advantage, and he's improving at doing that.
And he also attempted his first 3 in college against Oakland. I guess just how comfortable are you with him taking open shots, and I guess how much has he earned your trust in that regard, shooting threes?
I with all of our bigs, look, all big guys want to shoot threes, and to be honest, I don't mind it at all as long as they're putting in the work. They've showed their ability to make them in practice, and they're paint touch threes, they're in out threes. That shot in a vacuum, I didn't have a problem with, except the fact that I think we were 11 for 11 from 2 at that point. And so we really wanted to keep putting pressure on that rim. And then by putting the pressure on the rim, you're definitely going to get the paint touch threes, which we all talk about it, but a lot of shooting comes down to you miss because of the turns and the defense and the decisions, where if you're already facing the basket, the decision's simple, you catch and shoot. You've repped that so many times. And so, yeah, that's something that we anticipate all of our bigs are going to do in time. The thing about Rez, though, is when it's winning time, he knows what it takes to go win a basketball game.
Greg Campy did talk about the 19 threes, too, and he said he still felt good about his team because you guys weren't always probably going to shoot like that. But when you look at the numbers in practice and where you are maybe compared to last year and compared to the summer, how are you feeling about that aspect?
Other than yesterday, I think we've shot it well every day of the week. I think one day we had a 20 for 44 day from 3, and this is all just scanning the stats after practice. But yeah, I think they're going. If we take the right ones, we're gonna have some big shooting nights. Will Cheddar, Namari Burnett, those guys can shoot the ball. I mean, Yaxel, mid-30s on low volume, and we're encouraging him to shoot more, and he works on it every single day after practice. So we thought that was probably a little bit overblown in the offseason as far as us being a poor shooting team. Now, we never thought we were built to be an elite shooting team, but Trey McKenna was brought in here as a high-level shooter. The USA basketball coaches told me last year they felt like he was probably the best shooter in their camp, and this is before we had him in the fold. Winters Grady, obviously, that's what he does. LJ Kaysen makes shots in practice. So we and I'm probably missing a couple guys. Elliott shot it better than we anticipated. When he takes on-balance threes, he's shot it well when he shoots off-balance threes. And even the play before half, when he made the three against St. John's, that is what we need him to be able to do at the end of late shot clocks. Was it St. John's game when he hit the three right before half? Yeah, that's what we need him to be able to do, and he's added some creative ways to create space to get those shots off in those special situations. But we were probably more concerned with some other things than shooting threes. As long as we take the right ones, then I think we'll be a pretty good shooting team, and that's what we did against Oakland. We had really good in-rhythm threes off mostly good ball movement.
And what's your message to a guy like Oscar who can clearly play, but he might be down on the depth chart a little bit? And how has he responded to that?
Message to Oscar, just like those guys, stay the course when you're on a really good team, and there's some older guys who've done it at a high level in front of you. Just find your way on the team. Find your way to contribute. We all want to be a part of a group and feel like we have a meaningful part of it. And so he does that. Oscar's a talented player, man. He shows glimpses of being a high-level guy. The consistency's not there today, but also he's one sprained ankle away from playing significant minutes on a potential, I think we have a team that could compete in any conference. And so I guess the alternative for young guys in his situation is go to a place where the guys in front of you stink, so you'll definitely play, and you probably won't get better in practice. I mean, that's really what we're talking about here. I think we have a locker room full of guys that winning is the priority, and he's one of those guys. He's a great teammate, and a lot of times, I'm not going to go on tangent, but a lot of times when a bunch of sophomores or guys your age are playing in front of you and you're not playing at all, it's a lot more difficult than having some seniors in front of you and older guys, and then there's at least light at the end of the tunnel where you can see yourself developing, growing, and it not being too far off. It is tough, though, when you're a freshman and you see sophomores who are all league guys who maybe aren't NBA caliber prospects because of the dimensions or whatever playing in front of you. Then sometimes you just need to go where you can play minutes on another good team. So it's all situational.
You've mentioned a couple of times now the improvement over the last week, and Merez specifically. How much of that is grading the film from practice and analytics, and how much is eyeball? How much is just being a coach and kind of seeing some things click? Like, how's that dynamic?
I think our staff does a nice job of combining all of them. The analytic piece is important, but I mean, in-out threes are analytically the best percentage threes. So I think the coach's eye mixed with analytics, mixed with what you're seeing and studying every day. Because the numbers can get skewed too. I say it all the time, low volume guys bank into threes over the course of the year. Their percentage looks a lot different than it would otherwise. And then there's other times when the ball finds a guy late shot clock and he's got to squeeze off a terrible shot, and the ball always finds him late. Is he really a poor shooter, or has he been put in some tough circumstances? So the percentages certainly matter, but it's not as if we just look at the percentages and say this, that, or that. It's how much work are you putting into it? What's the quality of shot? And then if they're shooting good shots, usually we're in position to offensive rebound. So offensive rebounding is one area that we really need to continue to attack.
When preparing and even going through these non-conference games, how much do you find that you guys are still working on the physicality and doing those kind of drills to prepare for the rest of the season? And are those things that you continue to implement even when you're maybe not focused on it right now?
Well, practice time, the amount of time between games is a factor. Because you want, because of this 8-day break on Tuesday, our staff's goal is to look on the floor and say, man, we look fast, we look athletic, we look fresh, we look on and on and on. And when you get into the meat of the season, it's difficult to say that. But when you have a week in between games, then there's going to be a lot more physicality in practice and an emphasis on it versus maybe, when we play Wake Tuesday, I think we play Friday, so we'll come back and have a light practice Wednesday, and it'd be tough to really go a lot of bone-on-bone Thursday with such a short turn. So it's situational. Hopefully we've done the work and our mindsets in the right place where we can carry over this week of practice into the next couple contests.
Does anybody have anything else for Coach?
What were your thoughts on Oakland, the way they played at Purdue? I know there were some injuries on Purdue, but did you glean anything from that, I guess, having just played them?
I told Coach Campy right after the game that I said obviously a lot went well for us that night, but that game, I said that game, and he thanked us for playing them. Look, it's difficult now. You watch high major teams. I mean, how many money games was Michigan playing 5 years ago versus now? How many money games did Duke play 5 years ago versus now? There aren't very many of. I think we have 3 or 4 this year. It's probably half of what it was a couple years ago. And so these games are dwindling for a number of reasons. And so he just continued to thank us for playing Oakland. And it's cool to because you're going to have Oakland, a lot of our donors and fans are in that area. So it's a good game for us from a sentimental, I guess, aspect. But more importantly, I think the game's going to help our metrics late in the year. That's something we were very fortunate last year. Cleveland State, we played really well and had a big win, and they went on to have a heck of a year. Miami of Ohio, I believe, won the MAC regular season. So these games, if you can get the right money games, buy games, whatever you can call them, and then win the games and do what you're supposed to do on your home court, and then those teams are also really good and they're going to continue to get better, which Oakland does. Teams like us and them with our switching defense, the nuances with new teams are picked up gradually. You can't simulate all the things you're going to see, so we're very confident that Oakland game will be a very good metric game at the end of the year because they're going to improve, and also they're really talented. They've got good players, man. That front line, it's got to be the best, one of the best in their league, and then they have some dynamic guards and shooting. So I think they're a well-built roster. Obviously, Coach Campy's been doing this for a few days and knows what he's doing. We've heard they're well-funded. They have a good plan, and so that I think that game's going to help us throughout the year.